It's Saturday morning, I'm Steve, and this is the Saturday morning TV revival for the generation who sprinted downstairs in their pyjamas, cereal in hand, ready for Pokemon, Power Rangers, and the best cartoons ever made. If you ever recorded your favourite shows on VHS or fought over who would be player one on the PlayStation, this one is for you. We've got a packed show today. In Bit by Bit, we'll break down another rule from the player's handbook. We've got the most unhinged Pokemon game show around with Lick That Pokémon, plus a follow-up to last week's Master Set video where I'll be talking about which Pokemon you should try and collect a full set from. In What's in the Box, we're unboxing one of the coolest items I've ever been lucky enough to own. And then there's a round of just one line where you guess a book from the first line. Over in Book Club, we're setting sail again with the crew for my next part of my One Piece review. And in this week's Spotlight, I'll be helping you get started in Warhammer 40,000. Perfect if you've ever wanted to play but didn't know where to begin. But before we get into any of that, it's time to kick things off with Hobby Hangout, where we check in with each other, celebrate last week's wins, and set some new goals for the week ahead. So let's head over to the hobby bench for this week's Hobby Hangout. Welcome to Hobby Hangout, the part of the show where we celebrate each other's wins and cheer on our hobby progress. I love seeing everybody share their goals, so let's keep that positive energy going and celebrate whatever you have been up to this week. Maybe you finally baked that loaf of bread that doesn't look like a meteorite, or you built a Lego city just to knock it down in a hilarious fashion, or maybe you started collecting weird rocks that all vaguely look like celebrities. Honestly, if it's something you enjoy doing, it belongs here. So my goal this week was to complete my model for the Age of Painttober Travelling Man competition. I'm happy to say it's done. The model is finished, photos taken, and the final pictures submitted. But here's the little twist. If you've seen my posts, you might notice this model looks a little bit different from the final submission. Why? Because I decided to try Object Source Lighting, or OSL, for the first time. OSL is all about making the model look like it's glowing. I knew it might not be perfect since it was my first attempt, so I took some photos beforehand just in case. And while the OSL isn't too bad, it definitely changed the look of the model in ways I didn't quite expect. But that's all part of the learning process, and I'm happy with the progress I've made, and now I've got some areas to improve on. I'll keep this model as a reminder and revisit it down the line to see how far I've come. So that's my hobby goal for this week. Now it's your turn. Tell me what you've been up to. Whether you knitted an entire jumper for your cat, started a worm farm, or just finally finished a jigsaw that's been mocking you for months. I want to hear about it in the comments. Now, let's keep that momentum going as we jump into this week's Winner's Circle shoutouts. All right, let's dive into this week's Winner's Circle shoutout. First up, big kudos to Optimus Phil, who had an epic Warhammer 40k game with one of their best mates, and in their own words, it was top fun. Love to see that enthusiasm. Next, let's give a shout out to Matthew Nell 714, who's currently working on a drawing of a caricature of themselves. I'm really curious to see which features they'll exaggerate. It definitely takes some self-awareness and good sense of humour. And that's it for this week's shout-outs. Keep those hobby goals coming, and who knows, you might be featured in next week's Winner's Circle. And now, back to the hobby bench for our next round of Hobby Hangout. All right, it's that time again. Now we've celebrated last week's wins, let's look ahead and set our hobby goals for the upcoming week. What are we gonna tackle next? Let's get those creative juices flowing. How about someone aiming to create a miniature roller coaster out of paper and then testing it with a tiny toy car? Or maybe starting a collection of the world's most peculiar tea infusers. You could even try your hand at knitting tiny hats for your plants, or building a tiny cardboard city for your pets. The possibilities are endless and hilariously fun. And now for my own hobby goal this week. After spending a ton of time on my Age of Painttober traveling man model, I'm giving myself a little break. No massive goal for me this time. Instead, I'm going to create a new texture palette. It's a chill project. I'll be gluing little bits like old toy soldiers and sprue bits to test my dry brushing. It's simple and relaxed, and I can do it while watching TV. Remember that not every week needs to be a marathon. Hobbies should be fun and relaxing too. It's always worth pointing out that hobbies should be good for your well-being. Make sure you find time for them, but don't stress yourself out. Never set hobby goals that are too big or unachievable, because you'll only set yourself up for disappointment. Keep your goals manageable and keep your mental health intact. So, what are your hobby goals for the upcoming week? Drop them in the comments and I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. Let's keep the creativity going and have some fun. And now that we've set our hobby goals for the week, let's dive into our bit by bit part of the show and explore the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook together. Welcome back to Bit by Bit. This is the part of the show where we break things down bit by bit. And right now, we're making our way through the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, making it more approachable, especially for beginners. Right now, we're focusing on exploration. And if you're following along, we're on page 19. Exploration involves how you navigate environments and use equipment to your advantage. For instance, ladders help you reach high places, thieves' tools unlock doors, and torches light up dark areas, helping you spot hidden details. When it comes to light, bright light means you can see clearly. Dim light creates lightly obscured areas, and darkness results in heavily obscured areas. In lightly obscured areas, you have a disadvantage on perception checks, making it harder to notice things. In heavily obscured areas, you're basically blinded and can't see anything at all. Now let's talk about special senses. Some creatures have senses that allow them to perceive things in unique ways. For example, dark vision lets creatures see in darkness as if it was dim light, and tremor sense lets them detect vibrations in the ground. These special senses can be incredibly useful in situations where normal vision is limited. And that wraps up today's Bit by Bit. We'll explore more of the handbook next week, and if you have any suggestions for future topics, drop them in the comments. I'll definitely cover them in a future Bit by Bit. Now, speaking of unusual adventures, let's dive into the delightfully weird world of Lick That Pokémon. All right, everyone, welcome to Lick That Pokémon. Now, for those who are new, this is a Pokémon pack battle where we open 2 packs. One is Crown the Wither, but here is the twist. The winner isn't determined by the rarest or flashiest card. No, we're all about which Pokemon is the most lickable. It's weird, it's fun, and that's how we do it. If that sounds odd, well, that's your problem, not mine. This week, we have got 2 exciting packs. We've got Prismatic Evolutions and Twilight Masquerade. Let's see which one takes the crown in our lickability contest. Let's start with Prismatic Evolutions, the dreaded set that nobody ever seems to pull anything, and people convince themselves that Pokeballs are a hit. Right, let's see what we've got. An Aromatisse. It's not like super lickable as such, but might taste a little bit like a Parma Violet. Hydrapple EX. There are better, but there are certainly worse. Right, Twilight Masquerade. I think you've got some work to do, actually. I think there is actually a fair amount of lickable stuff on the table there. What can you do to beat it? Right, Vulpix not going anywhere near. You're too fiery. Froakie, you're probably very slimy indeed. Oh, a Slurpuff. Oh, controversial. An Ogerpon EX. 2 EXs. I haven't pulled anything for a while, and 2 EXs. I don't think that's all that bad in terms of packs, but that is not why we are here. So what should be crowned the winner? Well, Aromatisse. You're going to taste a bit like Parma Violet. That's not all that bad, but I imagine you might squirt a bit of your fragrance in my mouth, which is going to taste a little bit like eating soap. So what have we got? Well, Prismatic Evolutions. You gave me the Hydrapple. Had that been an Applin or a Diplin, I think would be a surefire winner, but Hydrapple, I think you might just be a little bit too aggressive to win against a Surpluff. Surely a Surpluff is like licking candy floss. I mean, maybe I'm going to be like that raccoon that washed its candy floss and it disappeared. I don't know. But I'm going to crown the winner of this week's Pokemon Lick That Pokemon pack battle to Twilight Masquerade for this very lickable Pokemon. Indeed, Surpluff, you win. And that's it for Lick That Pokemon. What do you think? Did I make the right call, or would you have chosen differently? Let me know in the comments. And remember, if you think this is delightfully weird, then we'll be back next week for more pack battle fun. Until then, keep on licking, and that's your problem if you don't like it, not mine. But speaking of Pokemon, let's dive into a quickie on how the number of cards per Pokemon can shape your master set journey. I'd like to have a quickie with you following up on last week's discussion about master sets in Pokemon TCG. So if you're diving into master sets for a particular Pokemon, keep in mind that all Pokemon are not created equal. Some Pokemon like Pikachu or Charizard have a huge number of cards, including rare promos and out-of-print gems, which can get super pricey, time-consuming to collect. So be prepared for that journey. On the flip side, you've got Pokemon like Mantike or Bonsly, where the card pool is super tiny. You could count the number of cards on one hand. So if you're looking for a simpler, more affordable master set, some of those lesser known Pokemon might be the way to go. So that's just a little quickie follow-up to get you thinking about your collection strategy. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks. And for now, from our quickie on master sets to a mystery unboxing, let's see what incredible treasures are in the box. Welcome back to another What's in the Box. And let me tell you, this week's unboxing is a real treat. Check this out. Oh. I've got the Power Rangers Lightning Collection Lord Zed helmet right here. This piece was a late birthday gift from a friend who found it at a car boot sale. It was an absolute steal. These helmets aren't exactly cheap brand new, so you can imagine how thrilled I was. Apparently, the seller was downsizing his collection and his partner was there too. And you could tell that it was a bit of an emotional farewell. But hey, I am not complaining. So here it is, the Lord Zed helmet. It's bigger than I expected and definitely not going to fit on my shelf. Turns out it's actually made for cosplay and made for wearing. And here is the coolest part. It has a voice changer inside. How cool is that? You press a button and you sound just like Lord Zed. Being a huge Power Ranger fan, this gift really means the world to me. It brings back so many memories, especially from the 90s era. I even had a cat named Zed once. Sadly, he passed away, but now his sister Rita keeps me company. So that's it for what's in the box this week. I'm not sure how we'll top this one, but stay tuned for more unboxings. Until then, I'll be here living my Power Ranger dreams. And from one awesome find to another, let's swap the helmet for a good book. It's time for just one line. It's time for Just One Line, our game show where you guess the book from the first line. But before we dive into this week's mystery, let's give a shout out to last week's winner. The first line was featured from The Handmaid's Tale, and we definitely had a winner to congratulate. So Minx & Co., congratulations for guessing it correctly first. That book definitely had some of the darkest themes out there, and it was quite the ride. All right, now on to this week's line. How well do you know your books? Here's the first line. Drop your guesses in the comments. Next week, I'll give a shout out to whoever gets it right first. So here it is. Behavioral science. The FBI section that deals with serial murder is on the bottom floor of the Academy building at Quantico, half buried in the earth. All right, that's it for this week's Just One Line. Can't wait to see your guesses. And speaking stories, let's switch gears from Just One Line and jump into Book Club, where we're breaking down the first third of the Arlong Park arc from One Piece. Welcome back to our book club. This is our chance to dive into the stories we're loving, unpack the details, and share our thoughts together. So drop your recent reads and thoughts in the comments. Let me know what grabbed you, what surprised you, and what you'd recommend. I love seeing what everybody's reading so we can all find some new books. All right, now that we've got our reading vibes going, let's jump into this week's review. We're diving into the first third of the Arlong Park arc from One Piece, covering chapters 69 to 77. Let's unpack how this arc sets the stage for what's to come. First up, we get a big information dump kicking things off. We get major world building. The Grand Line, the 7 warlords of the sea, and some familiar faces we've already met. It gives great context for the story, though it slows the pace a little with more talking than action. Some funny bits though, like Luffy's fishman doodles and Sanji obsessing over Nami, they help lighten things up, but the arc opens more like exposition than a big story moment. Nami also has a big reveal coming up. It's handled cleverly, keeping us guessing about her motivations and loyalties. The tension is fantastic storytelling, and it really makes you pay attention to her every move. Usopp, though. Usopp continues to test my patience. He's frustrating, a total dweeb and constantly complicates things for the crew. But that emotional frustration is exactly what makes him a well-written character. I just can't wait for his turning point when he finally steps up in a big way. Meeting Arlong early is unusual for One Piece. Normally the big villain shows up closer to the climax, but seeing him right away sets up a more layered conflict and makes you wonder how much worse things will get. The arc still follows that defeat the pirate crew pattern, but it's starting to hint at a larger, evolving storyline. There's also a strong theme of power and oppression. Arlong controls the locals through fear and tribute, which creates a gritty tension in the story. I'm drawn to narratives with this kind of conflict, and it really works here. One Piece's tonal shifts are striking. Underneath the humour and whimsical antics, there's a dark streak. Some moments are surprisingly brutal, and that contrast between silly and savage makes the story compelling. Luffy, though, barely appears in these chapters, and his absence changes the tone. Without his chaotic charm to break up the tension, the story feels heavier and darker. Oda's world building continues to impress me. The sea cow is ridiculous but brilliant. The fishmen are all inspired by real species, which makes the world feel alive and imaginative. The first part of this arc, though, does feel slower because we're dropped straight into the new setting with villains and heavy exposition. Action comes later. For now, the story is about tension and setup, and it's smart storytelling. Character dynamics shine even without Luffy. Zoro and Sanji's interactions are full of irritation and balance that show the crew chemistry is developing. That foundation should make future arcs hit emotionally harder. Arlong's power, Nami's mysterious arc, and the crew's separation set the stage for a thrilling middle act. I'm excited to see how it unfolds. And that is it for Book Club this week. Remember to leave your recommendations in the comments and I'll be sure to check them out. I love discovering new books through you, so keep them coming and I can't wait to see what everybody's reading next week. Now that we've wrapped up Book Club, let's keep the manga talk going and head into Follower's Choice. It's time for another edition of Follower's Choice. This is the segment where I turn to you and ask for your top manga recommendations. As you know, we've been diving into the world of manga, and I'll be honest, I'm still pretty new to it. So far, I've only read big names like Death Note, Attack on Titan, and One Piece. But I know there is so much more out there waiting to be discovered. So I'd love to hear from all of you. What are your favourite mangas that are perfect for newcomers? Share your recommendations in the comments so we can help each other discover new favourites and build a fantastic community of manga lovers. I'll be featuring some of the best suggestions in next week's show, so keep them coming. Let's explore manga together and help each other out. And while we're on the topic of getting into new hobbies, let's move straight into this week's Spotlight, where we're breaking down how to take your first steps into Warhammer 40,000. It's time for the Spotlight, and today I'm diving into Warhammer 40,000. Not the game mechanics or tournament play, but how I'd approach getting into 40k if I could go back in time. The things I wish I'd known, the things I wish I hadn't done, and the stuff I wish I'd bought and definitely hadn't bought. So here's the basics. Warhammer 40k is a tabletop game where you use dice and miniatures to act out battles between opposing factions. There are other games like it, but Warhammer 40k is by far the biggest, and the scale of Games Workshop and its player base makes it a really appealing choice. There's always someone to play with and always something new to build. There are three main parts of the hobby, and you can do all or any of them in whatever mix you like. There is the game itself, where you play using models you've bought and built. There's the painting side, which for some people is the real heart of the hobby. And then there's the lore, the huge, sprawling backstory that's been building for decades through rulebooks and novels. You don't have to do all three. Some people paint for competitions and never roll a dice. Others only play and never paint. Personally, I love painting. It's relaxing and creative, and I enjoy friendly games with my mates. Takeaways on the table and just having a laugh. The lore, though, it's not for me. I've tried, but it's too heavy and deep. I'd rather spend that time actually painting or playing. I'm not into the tournament scene either. My brain's not built for deep strategy and synergies. I like the social side, playing with my friends, chatting, joking, enjoying the evening. And that's the beauty of the hobby. You can find your own balance. You might start out reading the lore, fall in love with a faction, and suddenly want to paint them. Or you might start painting and then decide to try a game. Each part can exist on its own, and you can move between them as you like. Now, there are loads of fantastic tutorials online for painting and for diving into the lore, so I won't go into that. What I will focus on is how to actually get into playing the game, what's worth doing and what's best avoided. Starting 40k can feel overwhelming. It's a big investment, money, time and effort, especially if you don't know if you'll enjoy it. So my first bit of advice, go to your local gaming shop. These places are gold. They've got casual players, open gaming nights, and most people there are incredibly friendly. They'll happily explain things, let you watch a game, or even roll a few dice with them. If you only have an official Warhammer store nearby, you can still go there. They'll show you the ropes, but remember, they're trying to sell product. They'll probably give you a demo and then nudge you towards a few boxes to buy. Local gaming shops, on the other hand, tend to be more relaxed and community focused. You can learn to play and hang out without any pressure to spend money straight away. Once you've tried a few games, you'll start to get a feel for what you like. Every army in 40k has a unique play style and personality. Some are close combat focused, some rely on massive tanks and heavy shooting, others flood the battlefield with cheap troops. The more armies you see, the more you'll learn what suits your taste. Now here's one of the biggest traps everybody falls into: buying too many models too quickly. Because it takes time to build and paint them, the pile of unpainted plastic can become overwhelming. Buying new models gives you that quick dopamine hit, but it also piles up pressure later. Personally, I've got a cupboard full of unbuilt models, and it makes me want to paint less, not more. Having a small, focused collection, models you actually plan to use, feels much more rewarding. So what should you buy first? Well, Warhammer 40k armies are built on a points system where each model has a value. Even a small 1,000-point army can cost like 150 to 200 pounds and can take ages to build and paint. Games Workshop sells starter sets, which are great if you have a friend who wants to start and you can split the box, learn together. The armies inside are balanced against each other, but the downside is they're limited to just a couple of factions. You might later realize you don't love those armies, and those models end up gathering dust. That's why I recommend seeing if your local store has a demo army you can use for a game in store. Most do, and they're happy to let you try one out because they know if you enjoy yourself, you'll be back spending some of your hard-earned money there. All regulars often have spare armies. They'll happily let you try it out in a game against them. You can play, get a sense of what you like, and only then start buying your own models. When you're ready to build your army, ask for advice in store or check online to see lists and what units are considered staples. But don't chase the meta too hard. The game balance changes all the time, and what's powerful now might not be in 6 months. And that brings me to one of my favorite principles in Warhammer, the rule of cool. Pick what looks cool to you. Seriously, you'll spend hours looking at painting and playing with these models. Choose the ones that make you excited. Maybe they're not the most powerful or efficient, but if you love how they look and feel, you'll enjoy the hobby far more. The biggest thing I've learned over the years is that you'll have much better times when you stop treating it like a competition and start treating it like a shared story on the tabletop. Sure, your units might get wiped out, but if it makes a cinematic moment on the battlefield, that is worth it. There is no way to enjoy Warhammer 40k though. No right way to build your army or paint or play. You can change your approach, switch anytime, switch factions, drop painting, start reading the novels, whatever fits your enjoyment at the moment. I've been collecting since the early 90s, and the thing I've learned most is what brings me joy. I'm not the best player, or I'm not the most technical painter, but I know what keeps me coming back, focusing on the parts I love and letting go of the rest. And weirdly, once I did that, I became a much better hobbyist all round. If you've got thoughts, questions, or need advice on where to start, drop them in the comments. I love chatting about this stuff. And if I can't help, somebody else in the community definitely will. Warhammer 40k has given me more real life friends than any other hobby I have ever had. Some of them I don't even play with anymore. We just hang out because we met through the game. And that's the best part. It's not just a hobby, it's a community. So that's it for the spotlight today. A slightly longer one, but hopefully a useful one. If you'd like me to go deeper on any specific parts of getting into Warhammer 40k, let me know in the comments and I'll cover it in a future video. And with that deep dive into getting started with Warhammer 40,000, wrapping things up and moving into the end of the show. And that's the end of the show. That's everything for this week. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget to drop a comment letting me know if you figured out the line in just one line, what you think about the Pokemon in Lick That Pokémon, or any other manga recommendations for new readers from Follower's Choice. I love seeing your thoughts and getting the conversation going. Remember, a new episode goes live at 9:30 every Saturday morning on YouTube, and you can catch the highlights from today's show on Instagram and TikTok throughout the week. So make sure to follow the link in my bio. And if you know someone who would enjoy the Saturday morning TV revival, share this video with them so they can join in the fun too. The show will be back next week with more unhinged game shows, more reviews, and more hobby achievements and wins, and plenty more good stuff to get your millennial teeth into. Thanks for hanging out with me. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'll see you next week. I've been Steve, and it's Saturday morning, baby.